and instead of explaining to you how it's done, let me show you an example of exactly how I do it. Hey guys, Jay here with Word of Advice TV. If your oven is not getting hot enough or it's getting too hot, I have good news for you. There's a really simple thing you could do to get that problem fixed. Most of these range ovens, electric or gas, new or old, all of them will have a calibrating feature that you could use to adjust the bake temperature on your oven, either higher or lower. I've been to quite a few oven repair service calls where the customer's complaint was that the new oven that they just got is not getting as hot as their old one used to. And sure, they can set it to 380 instead of 350 to compensate for that, but that's annoying. It's a brand new oven and they want it fixed. In those cases, calibrating the oven is the perfect solution. Let me show you how easy it is to do so. On my GE model, I have to press and hold bake and broil at the same time until the special menu pops out. Right there, it says SF. And after that, I press bake, and that gets me into my calibration mode. So let's say that I think my oven is not getting hot enough. I can calibrate this temperature by pressing this plus or up arrow by, let's say, 10 degrees. Now whenever I turn on my oven, it'll run 10 degrees hotter than it used to. Or I can do 20 degrees, 30, and I believe the maximum was 35. Some ovens can do 40. But if I set it to 35, now it'll be running 35 degrees hotter than it used to, which will be like the old oven that the customer used to have. Now I just press the start button to save these settings, and problem solved. That was the procedure for my oven, but keep in mind that every single brand and manufacturer is going to have their own little process. Sometimes you have to press and hold bake for a while, or the up and down arrows, or the side to side arrows, plus or minus, or different button combinations to get into that calibration menu. The best way to know how to get into calibration on your oven is to look it up in the owner's manual. If you get lucky, your owner's manual might be right behind the oven, up on top. Other times you might be able to find it in the bottom drawer, and if it's not there either, you should be able to find your owner's manual online with just the model number, which can be found either behind the bottom drawer. There's going to be a sticker with the model number on it, or sometimes it could be behind the oven door itself on the body of the oven. Once you find that model number, just type that into Google along with the owner's manual, and you should be able to look it up that way. Now, what about if you're not sure if your oven is getting too hot or not? You think it might not be, but you want to double check. You could use a little oven thermometer like this to measure the temperatures, but just so you know, these things can be severely off. I've been to plenty of repair calls where the customer would call me out because this thermometer was not lining up with what the oven was showing, and these have been known to be off by 100 or even 200 degrees. If they're really old, they start to malfunction. They are pretty cheap though, so if you're going to be doing measurements with it, I would suggest just getting a new one. And before I continue, I just want to point out one misconception that people often have about gas and electric ovens. They think that if they set their temperature to 350, the oven will get there and just stay there steadily at 350 degrees. That's not the way it works. 350 degrees would just be the medium point. So the temperature would go over it to, let's say, about 370 degrees, and then it would turn off the element or the gas burner. It would go down, 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 all the way up to like 330, and then it'll turn back on, go up to 370, go down, and it just kind of goes in a wave. And the whole point of calibrating is to try to get it right in the middle so the swing downwards and upwards is the same amount. So if you're going to be measuring the oven temperatures with one of these, what you would do is take this little thermometer, put it in the center rack into your oven, and go ahead and turn your oven on to 350. Usually whenever we're testing the measurements or calibration on an oven, it's always 350 degrees that we test it on. The preheat cycle does not count, so what you would do is wait for about 15 to 20 minutes until the oven preheats or until it beeps, and then starting after that, wait for 5 minutes, open your oven, see what the temperature is on the little thermometer, go ahead and write that down, close it again, wait for another 5 minutes, open it, see what the temperature is, write it down, close it, and I would do that 6 times. With that thermometer, I would do that about 6 times to get a good read on it. This method is not too accurate, but it should give you a general idea if you're running too hot or not hot enough. So if you have your oven set to 350, you should not be seeing 390, 380, 370, 380. They should be going up and down. You should have at least 1 or 2 readings that go below 350 as well. But it's kind of a guesswork. And the more reads you get, the clearer the picture of what's actually going on inside of the oven will be. The way I would normally test if an oven is heating properly or not is by using a multimeter with a K-type temperature probe plugged into it. This tends to be the most accurate way to get the reads and to see what's going on inside the oven. So instead of explaining what I do, I'm going to go ahead and show you an example of exactly what I would do to measure the oven temperatures to see if it needs to be calibrated or not. So I set my meter to temperature, and then I put my probe as close as I can in the middle of the oven. So by the middle rack and kind of in the middle, which can be a little hard to do with the meter, but it works. There you go, that's a great spot for it. And then I go ahead and close the oven door. Make sure that my probe is still somewhere in the middle, and it is. And then I go ahead and set my bake to 350. And I'm going to wait for it to preheat. And once the temperature starts to drop again, I'm going to start from the low point, record the low point, then the high point, low point, high point. I'm going to do that 3 times, and then we're going to take an average read out of all the numbers that we get. It took the oven about 5 minutes to preheat. It went up to about 382 degrees. And at this point, the temperatures are going to start to drop because the heating element turned off. And whenever the temperatures go to their lowest, that's the number that I want to record. So I would sit here and manually just watch the numbers as they go up and down. I heard the click in the oven. That means the heating element just came back on. And yep, sure enough, it's creeping back up. So our first low point was 335 degrees. The preheat doesn't really matter, so really we could just ignore that. We're starting from here, 335. Okay, it started to drop back down. Our high point was about 373. So I'm gonna go ahead and record that. And we're all done. So in summary, we set the oven to 350, waited for it to preheat, and after it was fully preheated, we started getting our numbers. We got 3 lows and 3 highs. Now the next step is to get the average of all these numbers. We do that by simply adding up all 6 numbers. So 335 plus 373. Once we get our total number, we divide that by 6. And that gives us our average, which is 357. And from this number, we can see that the oven is running a little bit too hot. So I can calibrate our oven to compensate for that. So let's get back into our calibration menu. And all I'm going to do is decrease the temperature, because it's already running a little too hot, by, technically it should be by 7 degrees, but I'm going to go ahead and just do 5 degrees. That will get it a lot closer to that optimal 350 degrees. Press start, and that's it. Calibration process complete. And if you made it all the way to the end of the video, let me share my Uber story with you. So the other day I was getting a ride and the driver was going on and on about how he loves his job. He tells me, "I love my job. Nobody can tell me what to do." I look at him and say, "Take a left here."